The reason why I'm doing this particular exercise is that I can come out and give you gyan with a lot of preachy material. I'm trying to see how much you know so that I can connect the dots from what you know. Okay? So please take part in this.
1, 2, 3, come on!
You ask the question, I'm responding to it. So any consequence, you take the responsibility. Attribution of liability, let's be very clear about this. I'm responding to a question. I fundamentally disagree with the slogans that were raised in the campus. To say बच्चे हैं छोड़ दो, politics वहां से शुरू होती है, तो कहीं पे छोड़ने का सवाल ही पैदा नहीं होता है. Campus politics is an essential part of student life. It leaves impressionable opinions and impressionable impressions on people at that particular point of time, so there is no question of treating them as children. If you want to be treated as children, the elder has the right to use his hand. But if you want to be treated like an adult, then take the responsibility as an adult and don't hide behind your age when you do something. Let me put it to you this way. Can somebody hide behind age? Has it become acceptable to hide behind age when it comes to rape, especially after Nirbhaya? No, not at all, right? This is equally serious and grave. According to me, as opposed to using that particular issue for political interest, they ought to have been prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and the fullest consequences of the law should have visited upon them, according to me. That is a non-negotiable. The sanctity and the sacredness of the Indian state is non-negotiable. We are in a position to shout, scream, bitch and whine, pardon my French, is because of the existence of the state. And that should be protected under any cost, at any cost, under any circumstances, without any negotiation. That I will not even shy away from punching as far as this particular question is concerned. No diplomatic answer on this. It is wrong, period.
असली है जो भी नजर में वो असली है नकली है ये तेरी हसल नहीं मोनोपोली है रख ली है ये बात मैंने लिख के रख.
So I'll give you just a few timelines. Just bear with me. I'll try and connect everything and I'll try to make sense of it for you. So in 1992, the Supreme Court comes out with a judgment basically saying that education is a charitable activity, that there cannot be any kind of business as far as education is concerned. When did India liberalize? 91. Despite that, the Supreme Court comes out with a verdict in 1992 that given the importance of education, it was still approaching education from a socialist standpoint, that you cannot do business as far as education is concerned. And that continues to be the verdict of the Supreme Court even in 2014. But do you think that education is not treated as a business anymore? How many of you believe that education has become a business today? Okay. How many of you believe that there is nothing wrong with education being a business today as long as there is quality? How many of you believe that education at all levels must be provided free of charge regardless of somebody being good for it or regardless of somebody having the means to acquire it? Okay. Somehow you're in the minority. But in India, minorities have more rights. Oh, okay. That's the simple point I'm trying to make. My point is, retaining their cultural and religious identity is not at conflict with their obligation to perform a social obligation, which everybody else has. Because the state is not saying, let's educate Hindus. The state is saying, let's educate Indians. If that is the argument, then when you enter an educational institution, even if you're a minority institution, under this particular subject, you are entering as an Indian, not as a Hindu, not as a Muslim. That's the simple point.
कैसी लगी आगे स्वाद
Sir, why you are targeting minority?
No, I've answered that. I'm not targeting minorities. If somebody is getting a special treatment, I'll say it aloud. What is wrong with it? It's not targeting. It's saying facts. Yes.
And his name is John C.
We keep citing Ambedkar, saying he said it's only for so many years or for so many generations, and even he didn't think of it as a permanent solution. He didn't think of it as a permanent solution when the community has arrived at a point where its caste identity does not matter anymore. When intercaste marriages become the norm. When it is perfectly possible for you to think of a marriage outside of your caste without being constricted or constrained by other considerations. Will they have the same eating habits? These kind of stupid questions go on in everybody's head. So when that is the case, I do believe that there must be a certain amount of continuity as far as caste-based reservations are concerned, notwithstanding the fact that my own people may not agree with me or people from my community may not agree with me, but take it from me in writing. Anybody who's come from my kind of background would certainly understand what is that I'm trying to say. But I would certainly ask myself a question. 3 generations, 4 generations, you've arrived at a certain post. There are people who are now in the topmost bureaucratic posts of this country. Just as people responded to Prime Minister Modi's call for giving up LPG subsidies, would there be a similar response if he were to ask them to give up reservations? As opposed to the state imposing that kind of requirement, asking them to give up their reservations, it's better if it comes from the community itself, because that's a powerful statement. But the more practical consideration being, no political party will have the guts to ask for reservations on caste basis to be banned.
जेब में था चिल्लर, साथ वाले किल्लर, काम करे कांड वाले लाइफ बेड़ा थ्रिलर, घूमे फिरे बस्ती में दिन रात मस्ती में फिर भी काम किया.
So they end up asking, so does it mean I don't have the right to establish an educational institution? No, you have the right to establish an educational institution, but it is not a fundamental right. Now here's the thing. The Supreme Court interprets in the same set of judgments that no, as far as education is concerned, it is of paramount importance. Every person must have the right to be educated. And then it gradually pushes to a point where it says that right to life includes the right to receive education. Now here's the point. Ice cream खाना इनके लिए एक fundamental right है. लेकिन जब तक कोई बनाएगा नहीं, खाएगा कैसे? You have the fundamental right to consume, but if you do not have the fundamental right to make, what will you consume? Air. So the funny part was, the Supreme Court was recognizing the right to consume education or to be educated or to receive education at a fairly faster pace than recognizing the right to establish an educational institution.
There is a fear that is propounded by people following one political party or school of thought,
Right.
where they predominantly will say that, look what happened in Kashmir.
Right.
This may happen to you tomorrow.
Right.
If the minority indeed becomes a majority or even close to, and this is openly in political statements.
Right.
Because there are politicians who are saying that you should produce more kids,
Right.
because if you don't, then there might be a certain... So,
Right.
see, because we may laugh at it in studios,
Right.
but it affects the psyche of a large mass of this country,
Right.
who don't even probably watch as much English television.
Right, right.
How would you look at all of this?
The reason why I had to instinctively laugh at it is because I think whoever makes these statements is not entirely wrong, but I wish they knew how to articulate it better.
Okay.
Because there is enough literature to support what they say. So there is a fantastic book, and which has become one of the foremost books for anyone who wants to protect, let's say, the indigenous identity of any culture.
Right.
It's called the Cultural Defense of Nations, written by a scholar by the name Leah Vorgad.
Defense of nations.
The cultural defense of nations.
Cultural defense.
And he identifies that there are 4 kinds of majorities in any country. Okay. Particularly, he speaks of America, he speaks of the Israeli experience, and he speaks of Europe. Okay. So there are those people who are majority in numbers, but who behave like minorities because of history. So, for instance, if you look at the South African experience, the blacks in South Africa are certainly in the majority, but because of the history of repression that they suffered at the hands of the whites and the apartheid state, obviously they're bound to behave like a minority.
Right.
Okay. So that particular experience or that particular example is not unique only to India, but it is equally applicable across the world.
Okay.
Okay. So so what was the number of the British people when they left this country? It was barely 1 million.
Yes, that's
okay. And at that stage, we were close to 40 crores, right? So where is the comparison between 1 million people who dominated over the rest of the 40 crores? Okay, so clearly, numbers alone don't speak volumes, because you may be a numerical majority, but in your mind space, if you think like a minority, because you have either not been united, or because the state has abandoned you, or because your faith is not an organized faith, and the faiths that you deal with are organized faiths, then obviously it has a bearing on demographics, on culture, on social presence.